We are more than excited to welcome our breakout session speaker, Alex the Great Gurley. I'll be reading her bio really quickly. Alex the Great, which is an acronym for Given Real Encouragement Amongst Turmoil, is a spoken word artist, speaker, playwright, actress, vocalist, and activist. She has been touring colleges, giving keynotes, and performing poetry since 2018. She was a member of the 2013 Dallas Slam team and 2014 Fort Worth Slam team, as well as a 4-time competitor in the Women of the World Poetry Slam. She's the runner-up for the 2018 National Civil Rights Museum Drop the Mic Poetry Slam and a 2017 Women of the World Poetry Slam finalist. A graduate of the University of California, Irvine, with a BA in African American Studies and Claremont Graduate University with an MA in Cultural Studies. She has performed since 2011 in various venues, colleges, and stages across the country. Her show, Passport to Womanhood, directed by Prudence Sneed, makes its debut in 2013 and toured for 2 years. She's the author of Sticks and Stones Don't Break My Bones, Black Souls Dance on Beat, and Everything My Daddy Taught Me. Recently, she saw the opportunity to create a scholarship for other folk in academia and African American studies like herself, called Alex the Great Award for Black Studies Scholar. When not performing, speaking, or doing other diversity work, her 24/7 job is being a mother to a vivacious 3-year-old little girl. Her self-care routine involves peanut M&Ms, prayer, and sleep. She lives by the motto, whatever you do, let it be bold. Can I see some excitement in the chat for Alex? What excitement can we see, y'all?
Hey, everybody. I don't believe in unnatural excitement. So if it's forced, don't do it. Give me some complacency. Give me whatever you got. I appreciate it.
Yay, woo, clapping hand emojis. Okay, this is what we like to see, all right? So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Alex the Great.
I cannot. Is my screen shared? Okay. So yeah, once again, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I more than appreciate any chance I get to connect, to, further educate, to be in conversation with you all. If I'm kind of looking over here, it's because I'm looking here for the comments to see what you're saying here in the chat. And I'm also looking here at my slides at the screen, just to show you, I'm giving you eye contact. So, yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate y'all being here. So research shows that it's only within 7 seconds of meeting a person that you've already determined how you're going to interact and engage with them. 7 seconds, that statistic. That's not a lot of time. You've probably formed some type of, predisposition or opinions about me within the few seconds you've seen me on screen. Even before me even speaking, you've had some kind of encounter with another Black woman, and that's before you know anything about me and my own beliefs and my identities. All you have to go on is my appearance, and what does that kind of what does that trigger within you? What does that kind of the bells go off? What does that say to you when you encounter, a new person? Just really think about that. And we all have these biases, and it's very true. But recognizing those and acknowledging those are only the first step. The next step is how can we really account for those and to go against them and, resist to be able to really interact better with each other, to be culturally competent humans, just to be kind and compassionate people. How can we be able to live better cohesively? So just give me a little bit of an introduction in the chat. What centers you right now? Could be some comfort food, could be some much needed sleep like me, could be bunch of junk music. What has been centering you right now? What has been keeping you grounded? What has been moving you forward? What has been doing all of that for you? Whatever the case, if it's been engaging in further conversations. One of my favorite songs by an artist who's from Oakland, California. Her name is Guapale, and she has original origins in South Africa. The song is called Closer. The song actually doesn't have many lyrics to it at all. Closer, closer to my dreams is kind of re-sung in the reframe over and over, but it has really been, I guess, meditative for me and reflective, to really just center and really focus on those few words. What does it mean to really do that? Time at home with tiny humans is amazing. Oh my God. We don't get a lot of that, especially with the commutes back and forth that we had to do, all of that. So yes, playing board games with your family, please continue to do all of that and continue to seek joy. It is sacred. Don't apologize for your misspellings. We blame it on the technology. We have to depend on it now. So we thank, the humans who made it and those technological advancements, but it's not 100% foolproof. So I've been doing work in a DEI, as most have termed the acronym, for maybe 8-9 years now. I've started to do my own independent consulting work for about 3 years, as a trainer, as a workshop facilitator, as a speaker, and host of events. I continue to engage in these conversations, and I think it's definitely been fulfilling for me as well. But we're going to talk about microaggressions today. So I currently live in Dallas, and it was about 5 years ago that I took a job in Illinois, small city, about southern Illinois, not far off from Missouri's borderline. And there I was serving in a dual role as assistant director of campus events and coordinator of multicultural programs. So I was basically all things DEI for the campus. When you go to a place for a campus visit or campus interview, they have the opportunity to show themselves really and, represent the best of them, to show you and really recruit you and want you to come there. So they talked a good game, and really did. And I chose to take the job. I was offered the job and I accepted. And I moved there, really sight unseen. I only spent enough time there to fly in, do the interview, and fly back home. Didn't really have much time within the actual city and to really talk with other people and to be in conversation. I did notice some small things that I didn't see very many people that look like me, they look like they had much melanin at all, any person of color. And when I got there, I realized that was because there weren't many there. The campus had maybe 1,000 students with a population. I was only one of 5 total staff or faculty of color, and that's of any color. Black, Black, Hispanic, Asian, South Asian. Like I was one of 5 people across the spectrum, the border. And I found myself continuously navigating this space between keeping my job, really staying employed and being able to survive and maintain, and actually thriving, this constant resistance. I have a natural urge to react to things, and having to fight that, being reactionary, that human nature response. I was met with a number of different, acts of microaggression, which, in some cases, in all respects, I wouldn't even call them microaggressions. They were just outright violent, an act of violence, and aggression is an aggression. Why do we kind of invalidate it in some ways? I told you I was only one of 5 staff of color there, and I was continuously mistaken for the only other African-American female staff member on the campus, continuously. And there were so many things that would have, divided us from our parents, but, it's kind of one of those things that, that you seen one, you seen them all, I guess. I'm only 5'3", and she was about 6 feet tall. She worked completely across the campus in the athletics department. I worked in student activities. We weren't even kind of crossing paths in the same areas too many times. So many different things. It's like have you really even taken a chance to get to know us? So I was continuously mistaken for her, just in the cafeteria, walking by, and people be like, "Hey, Jackie," oh, "Hey, Jack." I'm like, "I'm not Jackie. Why do people keep doing that?" And met with this continuously until it was one morning. I stepped into work, saying, "Hey, good morning" to my supervisor at the time, and I was met with, "Hey, Alex, what color do you bruise?" So I was really taken aback, and I was like, "What the hell is this about?" Like, is that how people say good morning here in Illinois? I'm new here. Maybe that's the thing, but I'm learning, that, and I've kind of navigated this space that it's not my job to correct people. I had to really understand that. And how do I really take that into account when those things happen? And what do I do? What do you earnestly do? We've been taught, about what they are. We've got a lot of the what, but what now is kind of the next step, I guess, that's been missing from the conversation in some ways. For me, I know it has. Just to maintain, really, is what we've been taught to do enough to get by. But I don't want to get by. I want to thrive. I want to continue to contribute to the conversation, and I'll be made to feel small and made to feel different, or made to feel like there's any sort of, I guess, divisiveness. And sometimes it's not intentional, but it does not take away from the impact. And that's very important to keep that in mind there. That, I understand, I guess, in some ways, try to empathize, is that giving context to that particular situation. She had asked that question to my white counterpart colleague as well. They were getting ready for some event for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so when I was given that background, it made a little bit more sense, but it was still just aggressive, to be met with that. Good morning. So me, I'm an artist. That's one of the many titles that I hold. I'm a poet, a spoken word artist you heard about in the intro. And so that's what I do a lot of times to release, to let things out, to get it out there. So I retreated to my office after this particular situation, and and wrote a poem that helped me to kind of center my thoughts. And I often say this is the poem that I wrote that I would have given to my supervisor as a response had I not wanted to keep my job. But I'm going to share it with you all. And then we're going to go through some basic definitions to get a ground foundation, of microaggressions. I'm going to give you the common themes of microaggressions, and then we're going to show you some examples, and we'll give you some tips to walk away with. What can you do now is the big picture. So, how I denounce my Blackness daily, or tales from a Black woman working in higher ed, or when white privilege and Black privilege collide. To the white woman who asked me what my bruises look like, presumably in comparison to the color of hers. Dare I say I was too taken aback to give you a proper response then, but the fact that you even thought it okay to ask me something like that, white privilege. The fact that you only asked and didn't carry out the act to see it, Black privilege. See, unlike you, I have to live this. Attempt to navigate the minute space between birth and funeral. A smile and a tear, one moment, and the next my bruises look like the Atlantic Ocean parted open and swallowed 3 million bodies in its belly. My bruises, like the ring being the only ID Emmett Till's corpse could carry. My bruises, like a whip, lashing amnesia and Toby, forgetting his name was Kunsa, 1 foot. Bullet to the head, broken ribs, gouged eyes, severed tongue, sound like a horror movie, but that's Mamie Till's story. Sabrina Fulton's story, Coretta Scott King's story. It's my testimony. This body be the pulpit. This life is a sermon. My bruises look like having to teach you this, like the souls of Black folk, double consciousness. See, the fact that you spend your whole life making a living, white privilege. The fact that I spend my whole life thinking about dying, Black privilege, but you all know what my bruises look like. Like me being Black, woman, and alive ain't enough for me to have to analyze. My bruises look like this moment. Like me channeling all this rage in a paper and pen instead of your face and my fist. My bruises look like Trayvon Martin. Look like I'm regurgitating on 400 years of oppression. My bruises look like Selma, Minneapolis, Baltimore, Ferguson, like Oakland. Look like I'm burning, man. Can't you see a body on fire? You just stand there with that silly grin on your face, dousing more fuel on the flame. This here ain't easy, man. This living is a constant challenge. This blackness is beautiful. It's a shame I can only go to the mirror to see it. The fact that you tell stories about your 3 little children. White privilege. The fact that I wrestled with naming my beloved. Black privilege. My bruises like I bite my tongue so hard last night I almost swallowed it. Like my hands stay at 10 and 2. I make no sudden movements. My bruises look like Sandra Bland. A hashtag like the police can turn my eulogy into a suicide note. Look like the state of Texas rewriting history to call slaves workers and the slave trade a migration riddle. What is another word for a Black family reunion? A graveyard. I have always been the butt of all jokes. The fact that you got something to laugh about, white privilege. The fact that I got something to smile about, Black privilege. You asked me what my bruises look like. The fact that you don't see the irony, white privilege. The fact that I'm standing here is the evidence, Black privilege. Because if a Black body ain't the most obvious example of scarring and healing, then truly, I can't tell you what is. So you might have heard in that poem some of the identities I continue to carry with me every day. How I'm Black, I'm a woman, I identify as female. I could have some level of privilege in that I'm have been educated in higher education. I hold a degree that some of us are, but I'm still in the working class, one step away from the poverty line, don't make much. So all of these continuous nuances that I do continue to carry with me every day. And how do I operate within these experiences with different folks? So some definitions to get us started. Microaggressions are the brief and everyday slights, insults, indignities that are messages sent to denigrate by well-intentioned people who are unaware of the hidden messages that they carry. So that's where I talk about the intent versus impact. Folks who microaggress you, and I use this as a verb often, because it is an action. Folks who microaggress you might not be aware of what they're actually doing when they're saying it. You have to think about what their background is. My supervisor at the time at that institution in Illinois, she had never lived outside of her, rural city in Illinois that she was from. She lived there her whole life. They don't have a lot of people of color there, much less Black folks that she has to encounter. And I'm suffice it to say, I'm, can't be 100% sure, but I would bet a dollar on it that she hasn't had any type of formal training or, heard any type of, speech about the rhetoric, the history, the experiences, had intimate conversations with people of color to really help her to get an understanding. So that's where she doesn't know. You don't know what you don't know. But it still has a message that, you need to account for. The micro assaults, conscious, intentional actions or slurs. Example of those are men catcalling women who are just innocently walking down the street minding their business. Misgendering someone when you are addressing someone with the wrong pronoun that they do not use, or outing someone, against their wishes. That's not for you to do. And those are all micro assaults. Micro insults. They subtly convey rudeness and insensitivity, and they demean a person's identity just through those slight behaviors or actions. Example, saying something like "that's so gay" to a person, or a purse grab when you see a person of color coming, near you. Macroaggressions, those are those large scale or overt aggressions toward people of a certain race, culture, gender, etc. group. So these are all the themes of microaggressions. Being an alien in your own land, ascription of intelligence, colorblindness, the assumption of criminality, denial of individual racism or privilege, myth of meritocracy, pathologizing cultural values, and environmental microaggressions. And we're going to go over all of these again before we, come to a close. Just want to encourage you, if you have any questions that may come up, commentary, keep them coming in the chat and vibe with me. I love it that you're here. Okay, alien in your own land. So it basically, when people who are Americans or people of color in America are assumed naturally to be foreign born because of their ethnicity or their appearance. And, if you appear to be Hispanic, then people will say, well, where are you from? If you ask someone who, looks to be of Asian descent or Latinx descent, where are you from? They say, I'm from here, I'm from Dallas or wherever the city is, or I'm from Philly, but you're like, where are you really from? There's some kind of an implication behind that with that hidden messaging, or telling someone that you speak really good English, you speak English well. A person asking another person who is of Asian or Latinx descent to teach them how to say a word in their native language. Those are all those implications are, and that person who is of Asian or Latinx descent, been here their own life. They may not even speak that, language. The implication is basically that you're not an American because you're not from here, and ultimately that you don't belong here. So some of these things, when you hear some of these examples that I'm going through, you might notice that you've heard some of these things in your own life. Yeah, like asthma, and please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong. Where you're originally from, those questions, you might have heard some of these questions, and I'm giving the examples a lot, but might not be familiar with these terms or, the themes that are found, description of intelligence or, denial of individual prejudice. But so description of intelligence is assigning intelligence to a person of color merely based on their race. Saying you're so articulate, you're a credit to your race. Like we have the myth of the model minority, or asking an Asian person to help you with a math or a science problem because it's assumed because they're Asian and they're of Asian descent that they must be good in math and science. And also the implication is that others who are not from that background are not performing well in those areas, but we know that that's not necessarily the case, and they're not as highlighted because we subscribe to these, I guess, systems that also perpetrate these stereotypes that keep all of this going. It's all about how we're going to undo this. So the implication is that people of color are not as smart as their white counterparts. Have you ever heard someone say this to you or around you before in conversation? This word is so damaging. Then once again, people feel like their intent is, to say that they're not racist or, to affirm that they love all people. But really, when you're colorblind, you don't see other people's color or you don't acknowledge their own. And I got a typo there. That's gonna bother me. When you don't acknowledge their individual, backgrounds and differences and identities, then you're just denying them as a person. Really, that's all you're doing, and that's just as violent as being physically violent towards another person. That is an assault, and that's what I want to come across today too. That some of this, the messaging, sometimes just words, but they are definitely violent. Statements that indicate a white person does not want to acknowledge your race. So I don't see color, or America is just one big melting pot. There's only one race. It's the human race. We all love each other, hold hands, and sing kumbaya. That doesn't work, and that's not realistic. That's not logical. Because we are all different. So we need to find a way to affirm each other and our differences and our identities. We are all walking around with these different identities that intersect in a daily basis. Yes, America is a garden salad, not a melting pot. When you think of a melting pot, it's like a big stew or, soup. You can't easily identify the different ingredients that you've put in there. All you got is this new creation, really. This idea of new America, or this post-racial America, is what you forget after the melting pot. But with the garden salad, you can easily identify and see, thank you, Asma, you can easily identify and see all of the different ingredients that you put in there, and it's beautiful too. All the different colors, the orange of the carrots and the red from the tomatoes and the lettuce, and everything just comes together to be beautiful. It's healthy, it's good. But we affirm all of those different vegetables in the garden salad. We affirm all of those people's differences. Assumption of criminality. It's when a person of color is basically presumed to be dangerous, to be criminal or deviant, just basically sold on what their race is. So once again, when a white person clutches their purse or their wallet or crosses the street upon seeing a black person or another person of color, when a store owner will immediately follow a person of color around the store who's just coming in to shop, but they're, looked at and monitored more closely. A white person who waits to ride the next elevator upon seeing a person of color is on the elevator, doesn't want to ride, next to them. There's all those implications that people of color are prone to be criminals, to steal, and that they're dangerous and inherently violent as well towards you. Denial of individual racism or privilege. It's when a statement is made where a white person denies their racism or racial biases. Saying things like, oh, we are past that. We're in this post-racial society. We had a black president, we're advanced, we've progressed, as if that were to undo hundreds of years of, oppression and, injustice that have occurred in electing, I guess, a black president has been the grand solution in the scheme of things. Saying I'm not a racist, my best friend is black, or, I'm not a racist, my best friend is Hispanic, or whatever group that they're talking about. I'm a woman, so I know what it is that you go through as a person of color, but you can't necessarily compare those two experiences. There are very different experiences, in the world. And what that seeks to do is to continue to invalidate our individual experiences as well. So it's going to say that you must be immune to racism because of your association to other folks of color. Because I have this friend, then I can't be racist because of our association. And suffice it to say, that doesn't even say anything about the extent of you all's friendship, because we haven't even talked to the person of color and gotten their side, so they might even have the same experience from that relationship, that connection with you. And that's something to be thought about, is acknowledged as well. The myth of meritocracy, statements which assert that race does not play a role in life successes. Everyone can succeed if they just work hard enough, this whole idea of bootstrapping, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and the success is attainable. We can all climb that corporate ladder and, I believe the most qualified person should get the job, not understanding that there are so many other factors that come into play. You believe the most qualified person should get the job, but they are this systemic structures in place that do seek to continue to keep some folks in the different groups, denigrated and invalidated, and so that they are not able to succeed. That this is not giving credence to that the fact that some folks are given extra benefits and privileges, and that people of color this is implying that people of color are given extra unfair benefits because of their race, with things like affirmative action that came into place and other, policies that are instilled to account for and redirect and recorrect those policies in place. Pathologizing cultural values. It's the notion that your values and communication styles, or those of the dominant culture of white culture, those are ideal. are, prominent. So saying to a Black person, why do you have to be so loud? I've been told this for much of my own life. Why are you so loud? I'm not, like to say, I'm not loud. I'm passionate. And also, when there is a history of being unheard and being silenced and being undervalued, I feel like I have to be loud because I need you to hear me. And this is very important. So if I'm loud, then, and you are seeking to correct me and silence me, you're furthering that violence. Or saying, why do you have to be so quiet, to an Asian person who, more oftentimes culturally are seen as being a little bit more, I guess, reserved and, quiet. They're taught to be, to speak lower and calm and more, dismissing an individual who brings up race in a work or school setting, saying we're not going to talk about that, or pushing that, to the side. And the implication is that you really have to do away with your own culture and your own identity and just assimilate to the dominant culture, to what is seen to be right and ideal. And then we have something that, kind of added on that you might not see in this list often: environmental microaggressions. And there's a typo there, I didn't, but basically it's when there's these structures or systems in place so that some folks who are in communities of color, they have less access to certain resources that will actually help them to, succeed. Not when you're in a place or a city that doesn't have grocery stores within close, I guess, proximity to where you live. That's a form of environmental microaggression. Having excess liquor stores in communities with people of color. Well, when it's more easily accessible, we don't have access to grocery stores to get healthy food and to, feed, sustain ourselves, but there are liquor stores on every corner, which, leads to addiction and, all kinds of health problems when it's overindulged in. But all of these different, factors. Yes, as well. The hothead Latina, we've seen it, especially like in movies and, in different media and pop culture, some of these stereotypes or these the stereotype is what the microaggression is being acted upon, or, some of these ideals are definitely shown and magnanimized as well. So the implication is that you don't belong here and you will not succeed here because we're not allowing you the same level of access to resources, to simple resources, not having public transportation available, in certain areas, where you want to live in a more affluent, like where I live here in Dallas, Texas. If you go up maybe about 15 miles up the highway to Arlington, Texas, they don't have public transportation there, like at all. They don't have buses. They don't have, I think they have like one train stop that goes from county to county, but they don't have just like city buses that drive around. And it seemed to be, I guess, a more advanced and, more affluent area. But that's also the implication, is that they don't want people of color who, are, less economically advantaged, I guess, to move in there, because those are most of the time the people who don't have access or don't have cars to drive around. Those are people who need the buses and the public transportation to get around. And so when you take that out of the equation, then that's kind of saying, they won't come in. So we're not welcoming you in. We're not providing you the resources for you to even have, a reason to come here. So I went through all of those, on the list. I can go over again with you. I have some examples of some different headlines and articles that I found. They're not necessarily so recent, some within the past 5 years or so, but that definitely can account for some of these. So I want to see if you can kind of engage with me in the chat and let me know what you're noticing in the headline as I move through the slides, or which theme of microaggression this is possibly referring to or adverting to here. So this is an article from 2015. How Jabbar Gibson, small-time crack dealer, rescued dozens during Hurricane Katrina. That's the title of the article there. And I wish I had the picture side by side of the people they're talking about, but I mean, we can kind of infer that just from the title. But how Jabbar Gibson, small-time crack dealer, and then goes on to say, rescued dozens during Hurricane Katrina. Well, why was that even relevant? He was a small-time crack dealer. And when you actually get down to reading the article, he was a former, drug dealer. He had already been reformed because he already did his time in prison. He already accounted for that. Ain't that what prison's supposed to be about, reform? So he already did his time for that. It's why we even brought that up from his past. It's unnecessary. But he rescued dozens during Hurricane Katrina. So it's still, given that, well, it's not even an assumption of criminal. Well, it is an assumption of criminality because it's helping you to have some predisposition of bias towards him before you even read the article. You've already got in your mind, oh, he's a criminal, he's a felon. And now your mind is looking for more stuff about what he's done wrong rather than the right he's done. He rescued dozens of people during Hurricane Katrina. He actually commandeered a bus, an abandoned bus, and shuttled about 50 to 60 people out of the area to safety, drove them to Houston, Texas. And when you look at this in comparison to another article I found, how Jabbar Gibson, small-time crack dealer, rescued dozens during Hurricane Katrina, alongside a Katrina hero. He hopped into a boat and became a one-man rescue squad. Now, Jabbar Gibson was, at this time, I think he was about 29 years old, an African-American male. And the person they're speaking about here on the right, it says was in his 80s, a Caucasian male. Just to give you, further insight, I guess, into that. But all we know about Jabbar Gibson from the headline is he was a crack dealer. The other person here on the right, a Katrina hero. So they're already telling you what they want you to know there with the messaging. So which of the themes of microaggression you see played out here? It's mind-boggling how far I'm reading some of the comments. Yes, media definitely plays a key. That's how some of our biases are formed from what it could be, because like I mentioned earlier about my supervisor in Illinois, how she's never encountered a person of color in her personal interactions. All she knows is what she's seen on TV is, Black men play basketball, or they're dealing drugs, or, this, Black women are, they're welfare queens, or they're really loud and abrasive, all of that. And I saw that as well. That was another microaggression I faced while I was there. My white counterpart, my colleague, whenever I would talk in our meetings, basically, and say something, and then she'd say the same thing, and they'd listen to what she said, and I'm sitting there like, oh, did you not hear me? But there's also the fact that she would get loud and scream at our supervisor, really, and nothing accounted for it. But, I have to watch my tone a lot. I have to police myself, and that's really the trauma that I face, that I have to be cognizant of my actions, my behaviors, and my words, and how that's going to come across, because there are different implications for me. I can't be screaming at my supervisor willy-nilly, not if I want to stay employed, sometimes it costs a lot just to speak up for yourself. Okay, example 2. Kamala Harris, our new Madam Vice President, on the cover of Vogue magazine. And you can continue to chat what things you may have seen here. But Vogue, anybody know about Vogue? The type of magazine it is. Vogue is all about fashion, high fashion, right? And high fashion also means your culture. You're kind of up there. But we have Kamala Harris dressed pretty casually, if you want to say so, and it's not what will be reflective of how you would dress the person on the Vogue cover, really, So there's some level, I guess, of denigration. She actually took other shots that were in the fold inside of the issue, but this is what they chose to go on the cover. She didn't actually choose her image for the cover shot. She chose to take this image with her chucks, and her kind of dressed down pants, but she didn't pick this for the cover issue. This is the messaging that they want to put out. They presenting everyone with this here. America, here is your Madam Vice President with her tennis shoes on, and her. So, the implication is this is who you chosen to lead you, really. It's really, I guess, contradictory in terms as well too. Yeah, they did her real wrong. Like they need to stop. Example 3, Trump wrote rule out special IDs for Muslim Americans, noting their religion. So he basically pushed for some legislation to have Muslim Americans to have a special type of ID that would identify them, that would identify them with what their religion is. Trying to, and there's been like a huge, what I want to say, like a huge divide, I guess, within America, in a large case of xenophobia, but also just outright hate towards Muslim Americans ever since 9/11. But with this person in office, so what theme of microaggression you found here is to just kind of read the headlines and see drug dealers, criminals, rapists, what Trump thinks of Mexicans. So there's that assumption of criminality. Also, a little bit of the description of intelligence comes into play here. So with all of that said, I think I'm coming up on some of my time here. And y'all are kicking it up in the chat. I'm loving it. Brandy, yes, you're giving me. Yes. Sarah, Asma, yes. So I told you we're going to go over the what. Then we're going to go over the what now. What do we do in those instances? I'm giving y'all the advice that I wish I would have gotten when I was in those situations I was in, working that job in Illinois. That, I wish somebody would have told me, well, you can do this and that. All I knew is to bite my tongue. All I knew is to retreat. All I knew is that, and that's a formidable response as well. But it doesn't do too much to call the other person to some type of action. And if I don't call them out, they don't even know what they're doing is wrong. They're going to continue to, interact and to tell another Black person, what do your bruises look like? So I have an acronym here for you in terms of the tips. Resist. So when you're in a situation where, like I said, you've been microaggressed by someone, I don't even use the word victim, but as the person who has been acted upon in that situation, resist the urge to defend yourself. if you have microaggressed someone, if you're the aggressor. You know, and what I mean is when sometimes you've ever heard the statement, people feel like it's worse being called racist than actually be racist. But no one wants to really acknowledge or account for their actions and behavior. So it's all about accountability, really. And all you're doing when you're defending yourself is you're trying to take the heat off of you, you know, kind of stop from pointing fingers, take that blame. But you do need to accept that, you know, and take that blame that you hurt that person, you know, that you are at fault for that you did it, even though your intent was not to do that. So it can be hard. It's a human reflex to say, well, I didn't mean it like that, or, you know, I didn't want to do that. But just take it in. If someone blesses you with the opportunity to correct you, just take that in and sit with that. So resist the urge to try to be like, you know, well, I didn't mean to do that, or, you know, that's not what I meant, or you took it the wrong way, or what have you, because all that's doing is redirecting, and you're trying to put that blame back on the other person, and that's not where it goes. Extend a sincere apology. So honestly, you know, and a sincere apology doesn't have a conjunction in it. There's no buts. There's nothing after. I've always been taught that if you apologize to someone, but there's more after a but, then you just negated everything you just said. It's all invalid. So just extend a sincere apology. So I'm very terribly sorry for what I said. I definitely did not mean to offend you, and I hope that you can forgive me and that we can attempt to move forward from this, and I will try to correct my ways. Give them your heart. That's all you can do in that moment. Really apologize. Stop expecting something in return from the other person. So once you apologize, they do or don't have the opportunity to forgive you. They like, people have the right to say, I don't forgive you. So if they don't, then you have to sit with that. You have to accept that. But if they do, then that's well as good as can move forward. But stop expecting something in return from that other person. We have to stop putting the burden of the work and then the emotional labor on people of color, on those who are already being traumatized and assaulted and oppressed. And then, you know, if I, it's like when I grew up in a big house with 6 other siblings, you know, and sometimes, no slight to my parents, but sometimes it was like one of those deals where if one person did something, everybody's getting in trouble for it, you know. So if my sister hit me and I go and tell whatever, then we both have to hug and say sorry to each other, because you probably did something yesterday to her. You're going to do something tomorrow. But I didn't do anything. I was attacked. I was assaulted. Now I got to apologize to her. Like, this don't make any sense. So you should not expect something in return from that other person. That doesn't make any sense. You've assaulted them. So extend a sincere apology. They don't owe you anything in return. Invite the other party to further a conversation or connection, because once you open up that door and, you know, you've extended an apology, and, you know, there's not that defensiveness in nature, that you're warm in your approach, I guess, and you're welcome to each other, then that's where it opens up the door for further connection and continue to talk, because this is not like a one-time kind of deal. This is not like a one encounter fix all kind of thing. It's not like, oh, I'm sorry, oh, thank you, I forgive you, and now we're going to sing Kumbaya, it's all good. No, there's definitely going to be more work to do. This is a journey, because you cannot undo years of work. You know, you cannot undo years of people being programmed. You cannot undo years of living in these systems. You know, one of my favorite, you know, Audre Lorde, the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house. I really feel like we have to move outside of these systems in order to really break them down and to really get a different lens to look at them. You know, from the inside, you can't see anything. So invite them to further conversations. I'd love to connect with you more, to chat. If we can just casual conversation. It doesn't have to be, oh, let's talk about equity or whatever. Let's just sit and have lunch and just talk about each other. How are you really doing? Start again by rephrasing your commentary with what you've actually learned. So now the person has corrected you, and said, this is what you, kind of done wrong in this situation. This is how you made me feel. This is the impact it has had. So now you have the opportunity to kind of restate with what you really meant to say, what you intended to say and didn't come across. Now you have the opportunity to rephrase yourself. And then you thank the person that you offended for them taking the time to correct you. Because, like I said, emotional labor, if we all got paid for our emotional labor, we would be rich. We don't get paid for this, and it's very toiling, grueling work. So if I continue to engage in these conversations, though, they're necessary. And without them, we're going to be stuck in this. So thank the person for them really correcting you and taking the time to speak with you, and being nice and compassionate and kind, actually, in their approach too. And then I can give y'all, you can screenshot your screen here and get this website here. Harvard University has this quick assessment or quiz you can take about implicit bias. And this is my contact information here. If you want to continue to be in conversation with me, thank you all again for, I encourage everyone to take that. I'm going to leave it here for a few more seconds for you to take another screenshot. Take this implicit bias quiz. It's really insightful and impactful. And so, I'd love for you all to continue to be in conversation with me. Instagram is the best way to catch me, email me, all of these places you can find me. And also, I have a free copy of my book I'd like to give away to somebody. If you send me an email, the first 2 people that do, I will send you a book. So thank you. Any questions at this time I can answer with the few minutes we have? Asma said, I took this test multiple times. I cannot stress the importance of retaking it every now and then to better be able to know your growth. Yeah, because that's true. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. As we grow, we learn and develop more, and your responses are going to change as well. So the assessment would be different. And that's the general idea. That is the goal. You don't want to be the same person you were. Thank you so much for attending, Brandy. Thank you so much for attending, Brandy. Thank you so much for attending, Brandy.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex, on such a great session. It gave me personally a lot to think about. The Inclusive Leadership Conference would love to know your takeaways and what you thought to everybody in the audience. You can do so by rating this session down below, and any feedback and insight is always helpful to ILC and Alex. Please give it up in the chat one more time for Alex the Great. Don't forget to participate in the games and posts on the wall to earn prizes. I heard a rumor that you don't want to miss them. Also follow us on social media at TU Leadership, at Temple Diversity, and at Klein Go. That concludes our session. Please make sure you meet us later today at 4:15 for Social Justice Elitism. Meet me where I am with Courtney Thompson and Soraya Andrews. Thank you so much.